on the agenda. I want to thank everybody for coming to the Westminster Mayor and Council Rec and Parks meeting, committee meeting this afternoon. I thought if it would be okay with everyone, I would just say a few introductory remarks, and then maybe Councilwoman Gilbert wants to say a few things, and perhaps the mayor, you want to say a few things? Okay.
No, I don't have anything to say. You're the chair. You can
Okay, cool. So, all right, well, thanks for everyone for coming. So to refresh everyone's memory, this meeting was put together, the mayor and council asked us to put this meeting together as a result of the May 11th meeting. And at that time, we were trying to finalize some aspects of the budget. And one of the issues that came up was the Family Fitness Center. And on May the 11th, Councilman Cavacci came forward with a plan to keep the Family Center operating with the understanding that it remained budget neutral. So on May 11th, the majority of the mayor and council charged the Recreation and Parks Committee and the director, Abby Gruber, with developing a plan to eliminate the fitness center's operating budget. And subsequently, the Parks and Rec staff dusted off a budget plan that we had discussed last November, and they've put quite a few hours in it. Of course, with COVID-19, the city's budget and the budget of Rec and Parks might be a little interesting, but I think the majority of us are committed to making the plan work. For most of the Family Center's existence since July of 1994, it has been budget neutral, and I think we can do that again. So with that, Councilwoman Gilbert, do you have a few remarks?
Not this moment, I'm good.
And Mayor, you're good?
I'm good.
Okay. So Director Gruber, do you want to take it away from here? How about giving us a synopsis of the first item on the agenda is the plan for the fitness center.
Sure. Hopefully everyone has the memo in front of them or has a chance to review it, because the plan that was incorporated in that memo contemplates a three-pronged approach to eliminating the Family Fitness Center's operating deficit. The plan will be achieved through the following actions: reductions in full-time benefited and temporary staff, modest reductions in operating hours and group fitness classes, and an increase in monthly membership rates, plus the addition of an annual maintenance fee. As noted in that staff memo submitted to the Recreation and Parks Committee, and as seen on a screen that we're going to try to share with you. And let me give Heather a chance to get that operating. We tested this out before the meeting started and it worked.
We did test it out, and here we go.
While they're putting that up, so everyone's had it. Oh, great, it's coming up. Oh, very, very good, thank you.
So as I was saying, as noted in the staff memo submitted to you, the proposed reductions in full-time benefited and temporary staff will result in a total savings of $169,088. And that's illustrated. You'll see the lighter bluish gray color is the current budget, and that was what was forecasted at the very beginning of the budget process back in December. And the proposed column, which is that darker bluish purple column, reflects our proposed reductions. So obviously when you are reducing staff, there has to be other issues addressed to compensate for the reduction in full-time benefited staff and temporary employees. The following service modifications are recommended: new operating hours for the fitness center, and they would be Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. until 8 p.m. and Saturdays and Sundays from 8 a.m. until 1 p.m. Also, new operating hours for childcare services, Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. In the evenings, 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. and Saturday childcare hours from 8 a.m. until 11 a.m. Lastly, a proposed reduction in the number of group fitness classes offered on a weekly basis. Currently, the fitness center holds approximately 50 classes per week, which we are proposing will be reduced to 40 classes per week. So those are the reductions on the expenditure side. And now I'll address the revenue side. To improve the Family Fitness Center's revenue position, the following changes in membership classifications are suggested. 2 new membership classifications, city resident and non-city resident. In addition to those 2 classifications, we added a new family membership category, and that is family membership with childcare. This membership category addresses a higher monthly membership rate for those utilizing childcare services. Those rates are reflected in the screen that we're sharing with you now. You can see under the classification of city resident, a family membership would be $50 per month. Then the new classification, family membership with childcare, is $65 per month. An individual would pay $25 per month, and a youth or student would pay $18 per month, and childcare purchased as an exclusive or an add-on service would be $20 per month. Non-city residents would pay a slightly higher rate. The family membership would be $55 per month. Family with childcare is $70 per month. An individual would pay $30 per month. The youth student rate is $20 per month, and childcare could be purchased at $25 per month. In addition to the increase in monthly membership rates, each membership would pay a $40 annual maintenance fee. And we are showing or sharing another spreadsheet here. As shown on this spreadsheet before you, you can see that the proposed increase in monthly membership fees will result in approximately $68,568 in additional revenue. Plus, the implementation of the annual maintenance fee will increase revenues by $24,640 for a total revenue increase of $93,208. Factoring in the anticipated historical revenue of $200,000 plus additional revenue achieved through the proposed membership rate increases, it is forecasted that the fiscal year 21 revenues will total approximately $293,208, and expenditures will total $292,349. As illustrated, the proposed personnel expenditure reductions teamed with membership rate increases and the implementation of an annual maintenance fee will result in budget neutrality for fiscal year 2021. Staff recommends that the Recreation and Parks Committee accept the plan to reduce operating expenditures and increase fees, as all of the actions outlined above will diminish the operating deficit and improve the financial outlook for the Family Fitness Center.
Ms. Gruber?
Yes.
All right. I've got a couple of questions, and then maybe we can turn it over to Councilwoman Gilbert and Mayor Dominic. The reductions in the hours, if I remember correctly, didn't we discuss that those reductions were consistent with what it is our past experience has been?
Yes, that's correct. Our ActiveNet tracking allows us to pull a report called Membership Scan Report. And so we are able to view when our peak usage hours are. And we looked at that report, and anytime we saw less than 6% of utilization, we decided that those were areas where we could reduce operating hours.
So, I mean, we're going to reduce some operating hours, but we're really not significantly, substantially reducing services. We're just adjusting them to be consistent with the utilization of the family center.
That is correct.
Okay, okay. And then if I'm not mistaken, didn't we took a look at that 1999 newspaper article, and we have concluded that through our research that we have never changed the family center's rate since July of 1994. So this will be the first adjustment in quite a number of years. And then we're going to have to adjust these rates in Chapter 175 of the city's code, correct? Is that what you understand, Ms. Gruber?
Yes, I would assume that these rates would need to be adopted into Chapter 175, which is where the fees for the city are codified.
Okay, okay. And then whether we do that by an ordinance or a resolution or a schedule, I mean, we can figure that out. If it's okay, Mr. Mayor, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things I have. So I noticed that in the model, or in the well, let's talk about the finances first. In the financial projection that you put. No, so well, first of all, who created the pricing? Was that you, Ms. Gruber, or was that somebody else?
It was a collaboration between staff members and a lot of market research that we did to understand what other gyms were charging for what services that were similar to ours.
Okay, cool. Well, so I just want to know who to address the questions. I just wanted to make sure if you were the point person. If so it sounds like one of my questions was with the pricing, what pricing model you use. So it sounds like you use like a competitive model of pricing, which is I think that's pretty common in that industry. I guess the one thing that I see that really sticks out is there was no addressing. So prices are going up. There's some things being cut back, and the financial model you have does not show any drop at all in membership. And I know that's been discussed in multiple meetings before, that we were worried if we raised prices, there would be a drop. Now, I'm not saying that there'd be a significant drop. I don't think we'd lose half the members or anything, but I think with this going on, everything else going on, and having our pricing go up, I think it's a mistake not to assume some membership will drop. I know that, the people that we've heard from in our meetings, and, in emails and letters, they're your more like steady, like hardcore membership. Those are the people that if you double the price of the gym, they're not going to go anywhere. There's a lot of members at every gym like that, but I do think they're the minority. I do think that there is a percentage of membership that would go. Hopefully it's small, hopefully it's single digit, but in terms of percentage, but that makes me a little uneasy. I think that that's something that if everyone else is comfortable having a financial projection that shows no drop in membership, that if everyone else feels comfortable with that, that's fine, but it needs to be updated later if we figure out that that's not going to be the case, because I just don't, I've never been in the gym business, but in terms of pricing models and in other businesses, I do know that it's really rare that if you have a significant price increase that you don't lose any membership at all in anything. So I think that's something we have to be we have to keep a close eye on. Again, and that's one of the reasons I suggested a second year of this, because I think this year is going to be weird. I think no matter what we do, we're going to get results that just that aren't going to show anything. I don't think it's going to prove anything either way after 1 year, but I wanted to at least bring that up, because I don't think having a financial model that shows no drop in membership is accurate. I also don't know what I don't know what we should suggest as the drop in membership. So I'm pointing out a problem. I don't have the answer either. But I think it's something we should all be aware of.
May I?
Yeah.
So Ms. Matthews actually raised that as a valid question when I was discussing this with her. And so we settled on figuring out all of the numbers that actually were utilized in the information presented in the staff memo were figured at 20% attrition. So the family center, when I pulled the actual membership numbers to start figuring out what we could do, what actions needed to be taken to balance the budget, we were sitting at 771 memberships. And so the numbers that were used were 20% less. So I think
I thought it was 644. What was it?
616 actually is what we used.
What was it? What was it, Ms. Gruber?
616 members.
Okay. Because we were discussing 15% and we were discussing 20%, and we decided for the benefit to out of an abundance of caution, Mr. Mayor, we decided to go with 20%. 15% is usually an industry standard. I don't know if you have a copy of the study, but we did a study a little while back, and we based this upon a fairly comprehensive study that was done when we were preparing to take a look at this last fall. But to answer your question, we're basing it on a 20% reduction.
Okay.
You're good?
Yeah, on that topic, I did want to say a couple more things, and one wasn't mentioned at all. The other thing is the only thing, when I look at the pricing, the only thing that I don't totally agree with, I think the differential between city resident and non-city resident is on the low end. I think that could be a little higher, but that's just my 2 cents on that. And in terms of pay, I know we talked about benefited staff, but we haven't had any discussion at all about non-benefited staff, which I know is, that's a large, piece of this. One thing that I do know is that some of, if not our highest paid employees in the entire city, are on the gym staff. We have employees that make $50 an hour, which, if you look at actual hours worked, is probably more than, or it's definitely more than even our directors and our city administrator. And I don't know how that got to be where it is. It would be different if it was if a contractor situation, if it was a 1099. But as a W-2 employee, how do we justify paying $50 an hour for staff members there when it's all public, when you don't even make that, Ms. Gruber? You're the director of the department. So I would like to talk about that. And I don't know if that's going to be addressed or not. You may have already have a plan for that. It's just, we haven't discussed it. So I wanted to talk about it.
Yes, so we certainly will take this opportunity to evaluate all of the hourly rates for the temporary employees and see if there are economies that can be achieved through bringing some of those hourly rates more in alignment with each other. However, a lot of these instructors that do make higher hourly rates work less than 9 hours a week. So we certainly have a plan to look at all of those rates and decide what reductions need to be made on that front.
Okay, so people that are making $50 an hour, you're saying they work less than 9 hours a week?
That is correct.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. That's all I had. Those are the things that stuck out. When you're coming up with a new pricing structure, nothing's guaranteed. We're all just making a best educated guess. Those are the things that kind of stuck out to me, and that's what I wanted to bring up. But that's all I had.
Mr. Mayor, I think we're probably going to have to take another look at this, maybe 6 months or 8 months, or since the year of COVID-19 is going to be a little weird, we might have to, we're going to have to take another look at this. My initial thought on the differential is pretty much consistent with yours, but I guess I wanted to go along with the study that had been conducted and then go from there. As far as I also asked about some of the compensation rates, and I thought that I was under the impression that was an industry standard of sorts. I don't know that industry extremely well too. I usually go run on the Wakefield Valley Trail, but I certainly can't pay those rates on a councilman's salary, that's for sure. Ms. Gilbert, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a couple, I guess, questions and or comments. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm glad you offered up and thought that the 2 years was going to be a good idea, because not only I think with the attrition of people looking at our increases, I think a lot of people, given COVID-19, are also going to look at just the whole atmosphere of the world and say, I don't want to go back to a gym. So I'm hoping the 20% is going to be a good pinpoint. And then I think opposite of that, the amount of attention that has come to the gym might kind of counter some of that. So I'm kind of hoping that we're a little better than 20, but hey, we'll go with that. Ms. Gruber, I do have a question. And it kind of follows up on the mayor's question on the temporary employees. I'm assuming all of the temporary employees are all fitness instructors, or is that a group of multiple people?
It's actually a group of multiple people and positions.
Okay.
I would say the majority of people on our temporary employee roster are group fitness instructors.
Mhm.
However, we also do hire childcare attendants and front desk attendants out of that line item as well.
Okay.
And those folks simply supplement, the amount of operating hours that we have to cover.
Right. So on the, what is kind of the average going rate on group fitness instructors? Is that, I mean, are we kind of in the ballpark, or, I mean, I know you said they work 8 hours or less a week. I'm assuming this isn't everyone's primary job. Is it a supplement? Not that that kind of plays in with it. I'm just trying to picture why the $50 per hour and what kind of goes in that, or is that more time they spend at home preparing than actually teaching the class? I'm just trying to figure the $50 an hour as a fitness instructor, because it does seem kind of very high.
Yeah, so I'll try to answer all of the questions. We generally see a range for group fitness instructors hired in at about $25 an hour up into the higher end of $50 an hour. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that is a negotiation between the instructor, what they have been paid at other facilities, what they're making at other facilities, what their following is, if they're brand new and they don't quite have a following yet. So it sort of is all plays into where they fall in that continuum of rates of pay. Okay. In addition to that, this is usually everybody's secondary job. Mm-hmm. With that said, though, they're showing up, they're getting paid for 1 hour, but they're always here at the very least 15 minutes before every class and 15 minutes or much longer at the end of every class when members have questions or want to chat or talk to them about fitness goals. And then in addition to that, they're doing a lot of planning when they're not in the building to come up with their routines and to find music and to download playlists and to make sure that they're prepared when they do walk in the door for that 1 hour on the clock.
Okay, so you kind of answered my question. I was wondering whether their pay wasn't related to how many people taking their class. If they're teaching a group of 50 people, well, I don't know that we would be teaching 50 people right now, but say 20 people as opposed to 3, and whether that changed their compensation.
It certainly can be factored into it. If we get an instructor in that really seems to be pulling in a lot of people, then we do evaluate their rate of pay. And it is not uncommon pre-COVID-19 for us to see group fitness classes of 40 people.
Yeah, I can remember years ago attending a few Zumba classes with probably 30 to 40 people in it. So I don't know what it's going to look like now, but I do remember those. Yeah. Okay. Well, that answered my questions. Thank you.
Oh, and I guess the other thing to take into consideration is that perhaps some of the more highly compensated instructors have a following, and I guess we shouldn't be as much preoccupied with the expense, but what kind of return are we getting on that expense? So I would certainly be under the impression that there's more than enough folks signing up for the classes to do a cost recovery and an adequate and an appropriate return on that expenditure. I guess, Ms. Matthews, do you have any questions? Because you're the person that is charged by the council to make all this work. So if you have any questions, maybe now's a good time for you to speak up.
Thank you, Councilmember Dayhoff. Now, I offered some comments and questions to Ms. Gruber as she was working through the plan. Ultimately, I gave great deference to the plan because she's the one who's going to have to ultimately make it work. So I've offered some comments and suggestions to Ms. Gruber along the way. Some she accepted, some she didn't, and I think that's her prerogative to do so.
Yes.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes, ma'am.
Can we, as Parks and Rec, if we're all good with this, I would like to see totals and numbers and as the year has progressed, maybe where we are in 6 months, where we are in a year, and kind of reevaluate at that point. Mr. Mayor, I know you gave us 2 years, but I really want to see those 6 months numbers and see that we're moving in a positive direction.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we're going to have to monitor it pretty closely and get periodic updates in case we need to make some adjustments. And I can only imagine that we are going to have to make some adjustments to see what works and what doesn't work and that sort of thing. Mr. Mayor?
I was going to say, I didn't give anyone 2 years. I just suggested that if it was going to stay open, we should give it at least 2 years because year one is going to be a mess. And year one it could make the finances look disastrous. It can make them look really great. And either way, we can't trust them because this is going to be a weird year. So, but it wasn't up to me. It's just, I suggested if we're going that route that we give it 2 because we should get a full normal-ish year. I mean, we don't know what the second year is going to be like. I think you're right. I do think that, look, I think you're going to run into things like people that maybe had a membership and hadn't gone in a while and they cancel and they don't come back because of this. Like there are going to be things like that. There's going to be a lasting effect on all businesses and organizations from this for the most part. And this is going to be no exception. But I think it would be minuscule in year 2 compared to this year. I think, and to that point, while I think we should revisit this in 6 months, like you said, and I mentioned that earlier, I think we got to look at it in the same lens of those numbers are going to mean like we can learn some things from those numbers, but it's not going to be a full story that we can trust because in 6 months, I mean, I don't know, in 6 months, hopefully the gym's open for the majority of that. We might get to 6 months and the gym hadn't even been open that long or open at all. That's not even up to us. So but I did want to say I didn't give anyone 2 years. That was not my call. I just suggested it, and I think everyone for the most part agreed with that.
We popped onto that suggestion very, very tightly.
Well, I think the good Lord works in funny ways. I mean, I think this is a perfect opportunity. I don't know how long the governor and the CDC is going to want it closed. But this gives us an opportunity to get the new rates going and to implement all of our plans. As a matter of fact, Mr. Mayor, we need to work fairly quickly on putting the new rates into Chapter 175. Hopefully, at the conclusion of this meeting, Finance will pick it up fairly quickly, and we can take a look at developing either an ordinance. I guess at this point in time, it's going to be an ordinance to address putting the new rates into 175, and we can discuss at a later point in time as to whether or not we want to take the fees out of 175 and do it in the future by a resolution or attach a schedule to the budget. I'm not sure I'm wedded to any of the methodologies, just so it's as transparent as possible. But I guess, Mr. Mayor, what do you need? You need a consensus for us to move forward and pass this on to the finance. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't need anything. I think the finance committee just is gonna, since it's gonna go in as well as part of, you know, the finances of the budget. I think you know, finance committee is gonna review this, whatever our committee decides. I mean, I think, look, the only thing I and I don't even know if this is the right word, disagree with the pricing is, I think the differential between the city and non-city should be a little higher. But you know, and I'm sure that's going to come up in the finance committee. But just you know, I think as long as we have consensus here, it'll be passed on to the finance. You know, other things we got to keep in mind here too is when things open up again in terms of gyms, the market out there is going to be, those other gyms are going to be hungry. You know, your commercial gyms, your big like chain gyms and everything, they're going to have special after special. So that's something to keep in mind too. You know, I don't know how they're going to work. I mean, maybe they don't have specials, right? Because I mean, some gyms charge $10 a month, and I don't know how you can barely run a special on that. But they're going to market heavily. I think you're going to see a lot of places try to capture up all the memberships that other people. And as far as I know, I don't know if we do any marketing for the gym, but I don't know if that's the route to go either. I'm just saying it's going to be the Wild West out there for gym memberships when it opens back up.
So,
but my Ms. Gilbert, just one moment. My experience with the family center is that we work with a family demographic that is not necessarily going to go to one of the other gyms. I mean, there may be a small portion, but in my experience, and I've been around the family center since 1994. In my experience, we cater to a totally different dynamic in the community. So I don't necessarily know that competition from the gyms is really going to be a factor at all. I sort of kind of agree with you on the differential, but what I would suggest is that we go with what it is that the study indicates and what the staff has indicated is appropriate. We can always adjust it at a later point in time and see how it works out. But Ms. Gilbert?
Yes, since I don't remember what it was you said, Joe, but it did click in my head. I had a question, Ms. Gruber, about, because summer's approaching, I know some of the gyms have been moving outside. Is that a thought that we can move outside, Ms. Gruber or Mr. Mayor, and access maybe the top of the parking lot or maybe the fields for any of our fitness programs instead of being inside as a initial kickoff or something to start people going back? Or are we kind of buying away from that idea and just waiting for the official from the governor?
Councilman Dayhoff, if I may answer Ms. Gilbert's question.
Yeah, because I think, yeah, go ahead, because I think I have a suggestion for an answer also, but go ahead, Director Gruber.
So thankfully, we have been well practiced at moving classes outside during different phases of building renovation and improvement and construction, whether it's our gym floor being refinished or our windows being refurbished in the gymnasium. We've had to make a lot of changes at the last minute. So we've already begun to discuss internally what those classes will look like. And even if we could possibly begin to offer some outdoor group fitness now on a pay-as-you-go basis, not reinstituting membership rates or anything like that, keeping in mind that the group has to be 10 or less. So we've actually started to have all of those discussions and what type of safety measures we would have to put in place as far as sanitizing equipment in between. Not things like mats. We would certainly encourage people who would partake in these classes to bring their own equipment, you know, things that they would reasonably have. But when we get into other pieces of equipment like dumbbells and pull-up bands and things like that, how we actually cycle that out in between classes to make sure that it's sprayed down and sanitized before it gets put into reuse again. So we've discussed where the staging area would be for used equipment that's moving into a sanitization place. And if we had enough equipment, then to put that into practice while the others was being wiped down. So yes, we are discussing all types of plausible scenarios and situations for actually offering some type of group fitness now, and then what everything looks like as we re-enter this phased approach to operating a fitness center as we used to know it, but knowing that that's not going to be the case going forward.
And I have one more thing, and I don't know if it's even a potential or a possibility, but and I know there were times when we would use the large hall upstairs to increase revenue, or even increase revenue in general, not only for Parks and Recs but for the city. Is it a possibility that that hall could be rented out for other events other than fitness activities, or kind of is that a potential? And thoughts about anybody else, because I thought that was a nice idea that we could use it for revenue. I know a long time ago, historically, it was used for dances and community events. So I know we can't do it now, but when the time comes and we are able to access that space for larger events, is that a possibility or maybe not?
Ms. Gruber? Ms. Gruber?
Yes, it's certainly a goal that we've discussed, how we can optimize and increase our rentals for the gymnasium. And so we've come up with a plan that we're going to be a little more transparent as to when that gymnasium is not being used by our members or by group fitness classes, to make sure that the community at large understands its availability.
Okay.
Ms. Gilbert, if I'm not mistaken, we've discussed this before way in the past. I think we need to take another look at our agreement with the Maryland Historic Trust, because if I'm not mistaken, we're not allowed to rent it out.
Oh.
So we may want to take a good look at that, because I remember that agreement was in contention in 1999 when we were taking a look at some things. We may need to take another look at the agreement, because I think it's a great idea, but I'm not sure that it's possible. So we'll explore that. As far as the outside activities, Councilwoman, if I could address that for a moment. Up until just recently, we discussed some ideas of having some outside classes and such and some activities, but there was the governor's orders, the interpretive guide of the governor's orders is that other than going to the grocery store or attending to certain medical needs, the public was discouraged from traveling at all. So we had that prohibition as far as scheduling a program that would attract folks to come to an outside activity. Now that things are loosening up a little bit, we might want to take a look at seeing if we can't develop a couple of programs and seeing what the health officer thinks about them with the guide. And I guess that sort of dovetails into something that's not on the agenda, and it's probably might not be the best time to discuss it, but we have in the budget some necessary repairs that need to be made on the center. Now would be a perfect time to do it when it's not being used, maybe after July 1st, or maybe we can go ahead and do and advertise those bids to repair the stalls and a couple of the other incidental repairs that need to take place while there's nobody in there. I know we discussed that last fall, and we pretty much decided to go ahead with it. I believe it's in the July 1st budget, so maybe we can do that. Ms. Gruber, do you have a copy of the agreement? I was looking for it and I can't find it. It's probably in one of the boxes downstairs.
The agreement with Maryland Historic Trust?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
I believe, and Ms. Matthews can correct me if I'm wrong, we had some recent correspondence with a representative from Maryland Historic Trust where I believe we found the agreement and revisited it. So
okay.
I'm fairly certain that we can access that.
Great.
Yeah,
I'd like to have a copy.
I asked for it. I'm sorry. I asked for it sometime. I think Ms. Gruber's correct. I believe I asked for it sometime last year, so I
Okay.
should be able to find that in my emails because they sent it to me.
Great. If you could send that out to us, that would be
Be
great.
happy to.
All right. So, Mr. Mayor, for your Finance Committee, I think we have an agreement to move forward with this, with the understanding that we're going to have to monitor it, and we're certainly going to be amenable to whatever suggestions the Finance Committee. But I sure would like to go ahead and amend the budget and move forward with the budget according to Ms. Gruber's plans, and maybe we can get that impediment in adopting the budget out of the way. Is that okay with you?
Okay with me. I mean, finance will look at it, and then at the end of the day, it's an ordinance, so it'll be the whole lot of us making the.
Yeah, we can go ahead and amend the budget ordinance, and maybe we can go ahead and take care of 175 while we're at it. If it's okay with everyone, Ms. Matthews, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the pool.
That's fine.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, we'll take a look at the pool.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ms. Gilbert.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so the one last piece in the budget that's in flux concerns improvements to the city pool. We had that facility audit a little while back. That was on August the 26th, 2019. On May 18th, the mayor and council discussed just how much of the pool that we wanted to take a look at and what it is that we wanted to do. I thought that we had sort of agreed upon to do the pool within a pool idea because the pool, we wanted to stop the pool from leaking. And that's a $657,000 price tag to that. And that has a 3-year structural warranty. And then we really needed to take a look at the new plumbing and the filtration equipment. We needed to take a look at a new filtration building to stay ahead of Comar, and that's going to cost $375,000. And then there were some anticipated contractual costs for engineering and inspection services. And then, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Gilbert and the mayor want us to take a good look at the splash pad installation. And I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to try and look for a grant for that. The splash pad and
I did not want to look into the splash pad. I mean, you can look into it, but I am not pro splash pad at this point.
Okay.
I believe Mr. Dayhoff, it was me who was kind of pushing the splash pad.
Okay.
And I know it's an extra potential 300,000, but I'll explain why I kind of been pushing it. I know it's extra, but I know I really do feel as though, according to Ms. Gruber, that there is a potential for some grants out there. And if we can use the grants now that we're digging everything up, I think that would behoove us. I also think that if you do a little to look into the future a few years, I know we could maybe push this off a couple years, but then that cost of that splash pad's going to go up. And the fact that we would be digging again, I just think that it would, as far as a construction idea, doing everything at one time is a better thought, much less to bring in new membership, to increase revenue, and people see a new area for the children to play at is going to be a plus. If for some reason our already existing pool, little kiddie pool, cannot be used because of the demolition of the pool within the pool and the filtration building, I'm afraid we're going to lose membership. People will come to it and say, "Oh, there's nowhere for me to take Jimmy, and I can't come and hang with Jimmy here and have my older child there," or even for that matter, new families. So I'd rather kind of hope that we can get a nice grant for that splash pad, and or just budget that in there, or if possible, if we can't get the grant, we can remove the line item. And I don't know, Ms. Matthews, you can kind of go into that if that's even a But I just would like to put that in there and see how things go. And that way we're planning for it and it's budgeted.
No,
So,
Ms. Gilbert, I think it's compelling and persuasive what you're saying, but I'd rather leave it out of the budget and just simply look forward to a grant. I mean, there's nothing that precludes us from looking for a grant to do that and picking it up at a later point in time. Because in theory, if we get a grant to do the splash pad, it's going to be budget neutral. The one concern that I have right now about the pool is that the pool is historically budget neutral, and we're looking at a little over $1 million worth of improvements. I'm going to be curious as to what the debt service is going to look like and how it is that we're going to indemnify it. And I know there's been a good bit of discussion about a bond, but I was sort of kind of interested in a bond if we were going to do all of the improvements to the tune of $3 million. If we're only going to do $1 million worth of improvements, I sort of kind of want to look at other financing, because the biggest problem with the DHCD bonds is that you can't arbitrage them. And then the expenses that are associated with it really add. There's a lot of expenses to a bond, and I believe that they're disproportionate to the ratios when you look at $1 million versus $3 million. So I mean that's just my 2 cents.
My feeling on that. Were you finished? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. I can be.
So my feeling on that is similar. I think you know, I think the number that we kind of all were looking at was like 1.4.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that a couple things. I think number one, I think at 1.4, looking at like rates as they currently are, we'd be looking at about $100,000 a year, give or take a little bit in either direction, in bond and debt service. Because I know at 3 million we were looking at, like, it was a little under 200,000. So
right.
190. So it'd probably be a little under 100, and I don't know. And the amount of the bond may change that. So it may be higher. We may get a higher rate because it's a smaller bond. I don't know. Those are details for somebody else. But I think if we're assuming it's around 100,000, you know, I don't want the pool to get in a similar situation as the fitness center, where we're trying to scramble to justify the cost of something that is one way or the other serving the community. So I personally think that if we can keep this off of our operating expenses by not bonding it out, if we can pay for it with capital, you know, our capital reserve savings, I think that's how we should do it. Yeah. If it puts a pinch in a way, or puts us at risk for anything, we should obviously look at other options. But I think if we can use just money to pay for it, I think that we should.
I'm not, Ms. Gilbert, just one moment. And the other challenge with the debt service, and maybe we can use capital funds, and if we can, that would be great. But I'm not in favor of bonding it. I'm really not. The costs are too much, and we can look. A lot of the larger banks have community reinvestment responsibilities, and some of those rates are extremely low. And if you do a compare and contrast with the cost of the loan, putting the loan together, I think it's de minimis compared to the complications of a DHCD bond. The other problem, and I think there's some arbitrage problems with some of the community reinvestment money also, but we could take a good look at that. If we can use capital funds, I think that would be the best, because the other thing that we got to look at is how are we going to adjust the rates for the pool if we add another $100,000 to the expenses. Ms. Gilbert, I'm fine with the splash pad. I mean, if you want, but I need to find a grant for it. The splash pad, and also what was that other improvement that we were looking at?
Oh, I don't know.
The new learning pool.
Oh, yeah, that I feel as though we should table that way out.
Okay. But the splash pad, I'm all for looking for for grants for the splash pad, and also I bet there's grants available for childcare and some of the other aspects of the fitness center also. Mr. Mayor, what do you think? You think we can just move forward with what it is that we discussed at the May 18th meeting, and we'll just go ahead with the pool within a pool, the new plumbing and filtration equipment, and some contractual costs and for engineering and inspection. If you want to put a 1.4 on that, I'm okay with that. And then you guys, you folks over in finance can figure out how it is that you want to put that together. But I think I think we're at a point of no return with the pool. I think we need to fix it. Ms. Gilbert, can you go along with that? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I do have a question for Ms. Gruber. Are you good with searching out grants for well, the splash pool, but also whatever that you need for the improvements that are coming down the pike? And the, I guess the expeditious way that they might need to be taken care of, because we probably want this to open maybe next year. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know what the time frame is for doing all this, but I'm thinking whatever grants may be out there, we would need to act on it quickly and make sure the process is done in a timely manner.
So realistically, the way the grant cycles operate for the ones that I'm familiar with that we might be able to achieve funding through would not allow us to access funding for construction to open prior to next pool season. So we are about a year out.
Okay, so we're talking the following, not this coming summer, but the following summer, 2023, right?
That would be fiscal year
22.
23, but yes, calendar year 2022. That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it looks like we're in good shape on that. We'll move along with that. Ms. Gruber, if it's okay with you, it looks like, sadly, at a pay grade far above ours, a lot of decisions have been made that's we're not going to be able, similar to the pool, we're not going to be able to do the summer camp this year. And from what I've been reading and what I've been talking with my colleagues in other jurisdictions, a lot of other jurisdictions are not going forward with their summer camps this year. It makes me sad. You want to go over the decision tree on that, Ms. Gruber, or how do you want to go about that?
I believe I'd like to just begin a discussion and be sensitive to the amount of time that we would need to make a decision within. Certainly, as some of you may be aware, our summer camp program is used as an alternative source for daycare for some of our families that sign up for our camp program. And so scheduled to begin on June 15th, I believe, I would really like to entertain having a decision made by June 1st as to the fate of our summer camp program. And I did prepare a memo for you that was submitted along with the meeting materials for this meeting today that just outlined some of our concerns and some of the modifications that we know would need to be made to our summer camp program. And I think that one of the things we're contemplating right now is preserving the experience or trying to have a summer camp program with all of these new guidelines that would be in place for us to follow. So we know at this point, obviously the community pool is closed. So our Wednesday outing for our summer camp program to the pool on a weekly basis is no longer able to be scheduled. Additionally, what we've seen at this point, as far as guidelines are concerned, all field trips must be canceled. So our summer camp schedule would allow for us to embark on a field trip every Friday. So there's another day of our programming that would be affected. We are still seeing that staff and children must wear face coverings at all times. This is a concern of ours because of our lack of air-conditioned facilities. Our summer camp program takes place in large part outside or underneath a tent that we have set up in City Park. We also know that staff and children must practice physical distancing, and group sizes need to be limited to 10 or less. So we do have some financial concerns. Our camp generally operates on a break-even basis, and if we have to increase staff and then in addition to that decrease the amount of children that we enroll, it certainly would have negative cost implications on our summer camp program. So also during all phases of the Governor's Road to Recovery, it is suggested that children avoid sharing electronic devices, toys, books, balls, games. Then we began thinking, like, what could we actually do programmatically to occupy the children? You can't play tag, you can't play kickball, you can't play dodgeball. And so we just started to discuss what the new face of our camp would look like, and certainly are concerned that we want to preserve our camp's reputation to be a genuine summer camp experience for kids where you're outside, you're playing large group games, you're getting dirty, you're making friends, and you're going home really, really tired. So we don't want to jeopardize our camp, and we certainly don't want to turn it into something that it was never meant to be. So with those pieces of information, I'd like to put it out to the group to see if you have any thoughts or ideas on how you think we should proceed with our summer camp program.
Ms. Gruber?
Yes.
I think what really happened is that the folks who put together the governor's roadmap to recovery, they didn't want to say that you can't have summer camps, but what they did is that they illustrated their interpretive guide is such that it all but says you can't have a summer camp. Either that or none of the folks on the governor's roadmap to recovery have children, because I would not be able to have gotten, I would not been able to have enforced these rules with my kids. It would just, and then the other concern with if we can't do it 125% well, we probably shouldn't do it. So I think I'll look forward to hearing what Ms. Gilbert has to say and what the mayor has to say, but I think what we want to do is make a recommendation to the Common Council, to our colleagues, that we go ahead and make that decision in a timely manner. I've already gotten some questions about the summer camp. Some parents have said they are definitely not sending their children to summer camp. Others have just been curious as to what it is that we're going to do. Ms. Gilbert?
Yes, I would tend to, tend to agree with Councilman Dayhoff. I'm not seeing that this is a potential or a possibility this summer. I am curious though, Ms. Gruber, I think at one of the conversations we had over the phone, you had mentioned talking to the staff at that Boys and Girls Club. Are they considering anything, or have you thought about anything together as something of a joint venture? Because I know a lot of the kids that not only they serve, but we serve, really look forward to and can use the activities and the mentoring that is provided by both. Is there anything in the works this summer, or have they pretty much, because of the same regulations, said that they're not going to be able to provide anything either? I'm just curious.
So they are still formalizing their plan, and they believe that they will proceed with some type of summer camp opportunity over the summer. One of the components that they decided would be beneficial is, since our students have essentially been on summer break since March, they decided that their morning session could be more educational. And they certainly have a very nice facility in which they could make that happen and probably still abide by all of the social distancing rules that are in place. And then in the afternoon, they were contemplating more of a sports clinic type of program so that the children were learning sports skills, but not necessarily engaging into those types of typical free play activities that summer camp so often is known for: capture the flag, tag, hide and seek, those types of things. So that is their plan at this moment in time, and they are certainly monitoring the guidelines, and they do change rapidly sometimes, as we've found out, but are certainly concerned about the same items that have concerned us. No field trips, and are they going to have a pool to go to, and exactly what do you do for content when you are so incredibly limited to the amount of contact that campers can have with each other and that staff can have with campers. So.
Okay. Thank you.
I think what we'll do is go ahead and write this up for when is our next council meeting? Are we're not going to get together until June the 8th?
That is correct.
Okay.
According to my calendar.
Okay. Okay. I think we'll write this up as a recommendation that sadly we recommend that we not have summer camp, because we need to make a decision on this. And I'd like to try and get all this in place by June the 1st. I mean, certainly by July the 1st. But I'd like to get it in place as soon as possible so that parents can plan accordingly.
Mr. Mayor, any thoughts on summer camp? Or are you pretty much in agreement?
I mean, what are we going to do? You know, it's unfortunate, but I don't think there's, I mean, it sounds like if we followed the guidelines, we would have a really terrible summer camp. You know, it's like, so
Yeah.
It's not going to be fun for the kids. I mean, it may provide some benefits for the parents, but I don't think we can do it. I think it would be next to impossible to actually administer that. And, you know, I don't know the exact adult to child ratio that we have, and that might change by age, but to get all those children to follow guidelines is just, it's not a task I think anybody without superpowers can do. So I mean, I have nothing to add. I just, you know, I agree.
I know this isn't on the agenda, Councilman Dayhoff, but it kind of has crossed my mind. I know we've canceled activities throughout a good chunk of the summer, but Fall Fest is going to start to approach, and where are we at the rest of the year's activities, whether we're talking Fall Fest and or our my favorite oyster stroll, or are we just waiting to see how things go and deal with it maybe by a July 1st date?
I think we ought to start talking about that a little bit.
It's kind of why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
Very large event.
I think the important question is, it's for Ms. Gruber, is for those events. And I think the first question we should ask for any events is what's the day that we need to decide by?
Okay.
Right.
And I think
Yeah.
you know, if we know those, that we at least know what the next step is, because we don't want to just go canceling events that are too far out. I'm not optimistic about them, but certainly if circumstances change in any way, I think we'd all like to salvage them if it made sense to. So, I mean, Ms. Gruber, how far out? I mean, I know Fall Fest is our biggest event of the year by far, and I know it's probably the one we have to have the most notice on. How far out do you think we need to be to really make a decision on that without it putting undue stress and work on you and your department?
Certainly July is when we begin to do most of the work for Fall Fest, and we are working diligently at that time on entering into contractual agreements with vendors. And we would obviously not want to proceed with that, especially if it meant a financial obligation for services that we may not be able to take part in. We have talked to our Carnival Services vendor, and they have canceled, or their carnivals have canceled on them through the end of July at this point. And we've also had our very first meeting with our Fall Fest partners, simply just to say, okay, we're going to discuss what each partner would be responsible for if Fall Fest were to operate normally. But we had a very frank discussion with our Fall Fest partners about what it could look like if it couldn't operate normally, and then the very real fact that there is a chance, if large group gatherings aren't increased by the time September rolls around, that there might not be a Fall Fest at all. So we certainly have started to have those discussions. And I would say if we were to put Fall Fest on a timeline for decision-making purposes, that we would really want to know what that decision would be by July.
Well, I think if you ask just about any expert on this, they're all saying there's going to be a surge in the fall.
Right.
And I think we have a little time to make the decision, but I don't think it's looking very good for the fall events.
I'm kind of with that.
That's where I am too.
It wasn't on our agenda, but while we're together, I kind of wanted to at least bring that topic up.
No, I really appreciate you bringing it up, because I got to tell you, my conversations with the medical experts indicate that there is a real possibility that the fall is going to be pretty interesting. And Fall Fest takes an awful lot of planning. So maybe if it's okay with you, Mr. Mayor, we talk to the council president about putting it on the agenda and discussing it at the next council meeting, so that we can make a timely decision. Makes me real sad, but I think that's what we need to do. Unless anyone else has anything to bring up, Ms. Matthews?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Gruber, what's the total amount raised over the past few years on average through Fall Fest for the charity organizations, the nonprofits that it supports?
So those numbers are largely dependent on the weather and our crowds. And since I have been working with Fall Fest, I've seen donation amounts range anywhere from $4,000 to $7,000 per partner organization.
Per partner. And what's the total partners that we allow each one?
4.
4. Okay.
I'm going to follow up on that, Mr. Mayor. And I don't know that you even know the answer. I know the folks that participate in Fall Fest and receive contributions from the proceeds, they vary every year, if that's not correct, right? Ms. Gruber?
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
The folks that receive proceeds from the Fall Fest, they're different organizations, different nonprofits every year, right?
That is correct. We do see some partner organizations repeat. Mm-hmm. We do have a limited amount of nonprofits that apply with us on an annual basis. So oftentimes there aren't a plethora of applications to pick from. So that's when we do see organizations repeat their volunteer opportunity with Fall Fest. Additionally, we do have some organizations that perform incredibly well. And so there are some economies to retain a partner organization that performed very well, and they're applying again. So oftentimes it's a combination of the two factors, not a lot of depth in applications, mm-hmm. and a partner organization enjoying the experience, and it's done a lot for team building within their organization. They want to apply again and volunteer for another year.
So my follow-up to that is, any way we could possibly, my guess is we're going to end up probably not being happy, but making a negative decision, and maybe possibly not having once our discussion is obviously, of course, any thought of maybe a virtual fundraiser or something, so that the organizations we can still have a fundraising event for them, because I know it's a good chunk for some folks and for some organizations, it is quite a beneficial event for them, and it could make or break that organization or nonprofit, or at least add to the events and the ability of them to give back to the public. Any thought on that, guys? Just a thought.
I mean, that's why I asked the question I did. I don't have, I don't think I have a whole lot to say or ask right now. I wanted to think about it, but that's why I asked. I just wanted to see what kind of, I mean, look, through all of this, with COVID-19, I think you have some people that are struggling more than others. I think, but I think charity organizations are probably, there might have been a surge in the beginning, but I think they are going to suffer a lot from this. So it's just something I wanted to be aware of and think about. I don't have any answers right now, but I was thinking along the same lines you were, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Might be something we want to explore. It reminds me of the groups that have the fundraisers in which you don't attend the ball, but
Mm-hmm.
you make a contribution to it. So, I mean, maybe we could ask the leadership of the Rec and Parks Department to take a look at maybe what are some fun and innovative ways to raise a couple of dollars for these groups. But we probably need to make a timely decision. So, Mr. Mayor, if you could ask the council president to put it on the next agenda, I think that would be the thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, Ms. Matthews, if you don't mind adding that to the agenda that gets sent out for Mr. President's approval,
Yeah.
to discuss that. I think
Maybe
that's a
under
good-
the
Certainly.
COVID-19 update or something like that. All right, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, I would suggest that I go back to making dinner. Thanks everybody for their time. I really super appreciate it. It's good to see everyone.
Thank you.